So what you're seeing now is a simulation of 10,000 Boids. Each of those coloured shapes are an individual agent, simulated according to some algorithm. Okay, so the Boids algorithm, which you may or may not have heard of, was invented by Craig Reynolds in 1986, and it's a way of simulating flocking behavior. Okay, so flocking behavior, something like this, where you see birds in the sky making these interesting shapes, flocking, or fish, shoaling. There was an interest at the time in figuring out whether you can simulate this kind of behavior with quite simple rules. And it's something that I found particularly interesting. Anyway, so this is the algorithm that makes it possible. So there's just three basic rules: separation, alignment, and cohesion. So each individual agent, which represented by this triangle here, has a radius in which it can see other agents. It's like a radius of vision. And any other agent, any other triangle in that radius, it sees, and it knows the distance to it, and it also knows the direction of that other agent. And so knowing about these other agents in its visual radius, that observer can modify its movement according to these three rules. So there's separation, alignment, and cohesion. Separation just means that the agent will push away from the average of the position of all of the other agents in its visual radius. So it'll tend to want to move away from those other agents it sees. Alignment is it wants to change its direction to be closer to the average of those other agents which it sees. And then cohesion is it wants to move towards the other agents which it sees, the average position. So here you can see it's got a vector of acceleration towards the average position of those agents. Okay, so it's kind of interesting. There's a force pushing it away from the other agents, a force moving it towards the other agents. So and then some alignment. Okay, so here's an example that I coded up back in 2019 before AI. So I did this from scratch with p5.js, and you can see that the agents are moving around, and when you click they go towards the cursor, and at the moment there's toroidal boundary conditions, which just means that when they go off one side they come back in the other side, the opposite side. And then if I press W, it makes repulsive boundaries, so they get boxed in with some forcing. But as you can see, there's only about 50 agents here. And something that I've been interested in recently is trying to figure out how to simulate more agents and make the simulation run faster. Because generally I'm very interested in graphical simulations, and I want to be able to make very very high count graphical simulations where there's a lot of things happening and it still runs at a high frame rate. So this is just in kind of raw JavaScript with p5.js, which is a graphics library, JavaScript graphics library. And there's no parallelization, no concurrency, and there's no utilization of the graphics card. Okay, but since the advent of AI and vibe coding, I was able to come up with this, which is a much higher count version. So instead of there being 50 Boids, there's now 10,000, and it's running at 60 FPS. And you see there's like a trail behind them. If I can turn that off, okay, and they're much smaller in this case. So this is pretty fun, and let's play around with it. I can make there be less Boids, so I can take it all the way down to 1,000. Can make them move a bit faster. And let's take it up to 5,000. And 10,000. And then if I go to 25,000, the frame rate starts to drop. Yeah, it's at 38 frames now. Still not bad for 25,000. So the question is, how is this running so much faster with so many more Boids than the version that I naively coded in p5.js? Well, this version uses something called WebGPU, which is a graphics library specifically for making things with JavaScript on the web. Although WebGPU itself isn't just a JavaScript library; it has its own language itself. So you have to define like a shader function in its own syntax. Anyway, the point of WebGPU is it allows the program to use the graphics card, and that allows you to do many calculations in parallel, such as calculating the the position of Boids and especially the rendering of the Boids. So it does both. So it does both the compute of like the position and forces, and it also does the graphical rendering, both of which are accelerated by the graphics card. And it really makes a big difference, as you can see, because now there's 10,000 where before there was 50. Okay, so let's play around with this a bit. We can turn the toroidal map off again, so we have the fixed boundaries. And so we've got these sliders for the three forces. There's separation, alignment, cohesion, and then there's also visual range. So the radius which each Boid can see. So I'm just going to lower the speed a little bit. And then if I increase separation, then they get forced apart a little bit. But because they also have cohesion, they still kind of stick together. But if I increase cohesion a lot, then because there's the separation, they still stay separate. But you see they're some radius away from each other, but they're still sticking together. So now if I take away separation, with high cohesion, they get stuck together. It's kind of fun. Then if I drop cohesion, they spread out again. If I drop separation, they're neither pushing towards each other or against each other. And then if I make alignment stronger, they tend to want to go in the same direction as each other. A bit more separation. Cohesion, it kind of looks like a fluid almost. See, that's an interesting one. So it's kind of fun to play around with this. quite remarkable. You get these clusters forming. So I'll leave it there. Try it out.